All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a classic clash of generations in the UFC. On one side, we've got a hardened former champion trying to prove he's still got it, and on the other, an undefeated rising star looking to violently take the torch. But what happened behind the scenes? Well, that reveals exactly how high-stakes matchups like this are actually won. Let's dive right in. So here's the big question. How exactly does an explosive 24-year-old prospect systematically dismantle a seasoned 38-year-old ex-champion? We hear about youth versus experience all the time in sports, right? But in mixed martial arts, that dynamic is, well, it's uniquely dangerous. The young guy brings pure ferocity and speed, but the veteran, he's bringing a career full of hard-learned tricks, deep-water survival skills, and a refusal to just fade away. To understand how youth triumphed in this specific fight, we really have to look past just the physical stats and examine the incredibly strict tactical preparation that made it happen. The sheer contrast between these two men stepping into the octagon is just staggering. On one side, you have the 38-year-old veteran, Muhammad. He's a former world champ fighting to protect his legacy, coming off 2 straight losses, and frankly, desperate to prove he's still the absolute best in the world. And then on the other side, the youth. Gabriel Bonfim. He's just 24 years old, riding this crazy, undefeated 19-1 record with a 4-fight win streak. But what's absolutely crucial to take away here is their motivation. Muhammad is fighting for his legacy. Bonfim, he's fighting for his family's future, specifically his young daughter. You've got 2 entirely different driving forces colliding right there in the cage.
The intensity of the veteran's mindset here is what makes this so incredibly compelling. You see, Muhammad didn't just view Bonfim as another opponent. Not at all. He viewed him as an inexperienced kid trying to steal his life's work. Muhammad actually noted that Bonfim was entering unfamiliar space. You know, those championship rounds, the deep waters where veterans completely thrive. For Muhammad, the game plan was just as psychological as it was physical. He felt he was the hungrier lion, and his goal wasn't just to get a win. His goal was to literally break the 24-year-old's will.
But man, Bonfim's motivation was just profoundly primal. He talked about coming home from grueling training sessions and seeing his daughter, and how that completely recharged him. Facing someone trying to stop his ascent, it made him want to hurt his opponent even more. Why? Because he viewed it as someone literally trying to take food out of his kid's mouth. So this wasn't just a sport for the young prospect anymore, it was about absolute survival.
Now here is a universal truth. Whether you're stepping into the octagon or honestly tackling a massive project at work, raw emotion and youthful explosiveness, they're rarely enough on their own. You have to channel that fire into a calculated strategy if you actually want results. Bonfim's team knew this. They knew that relying solely on early-round aggression against a guy known for extreme toughness was just a recipe for disaster, so they needed a blueprint. They had to transition Bonfim from an explosive early finisher into a highly calculated, strategic fighter who was totally prepared for a grueling 25-minute war.
In that 3-month blueprint, it was incredibly disciplined. First up, a heavy focus on 5-round physical conditioning. They had to make sure he had the gas tank to match his power. Second, intense visual memorization and fight visualization. They were mentally preparing him for literally every single scenario. Third, mastering distance control. And finally, total center octagon dominance. As you can see, they weren't just training his body, they were actively maturing his fight IQ to match the veterans.
The absolute anchor of their strategy was drilled into him constantly by his coaches. Keep him in the center, apply pressure, but do not close the distance too much. See, against a wrestler and a grinder like Muhammad, if you get too close, you're getting taken down. If you back up against the cage, you get controlled. To pull this off requires an incredible amount of maturity and discipline for a 24-year-old knockout artist. He had to fight with this level of measured restraint and completely hold back his natural instinct to just brawl.
Okay, so how did this master plan actually hold up under the bright arena lights? Perfectly. Right from the opening bell, Bonfim's technical preparation just shone through. When Muhammad went for his early takedowns, trying to test the young guy's grappling, Bonfim was ready. He barely even had to overexert himself. He simply stuffed the attempts, moved out of the way, and immediately took back control of the center. He basically forced the former champ to fight exactly where he didn't want to be, in a pure striking battle out in open space. It was a brilliant showcase of fight IQ.
And between rounds, the real-time tactical adjustments were just brilliantly simple. Bonfim's corner wasn't asking him for flashy spinning kicks or some wild combinations. No, they kept it brutally simple. Keep punishing him with the jab. They noticed Muhammad was throwing himself into these straightforward attacks, so they told Bonfim to feint, use his footwork, and just continually snap that jab. It's actually a great lesson that sometimes the most basic tools are by far the most destructive. This hyper-disciplined approach completely dismantled the veteran's rhythm.
Eventually, the physical toll of that disciplined game plan started to boil over. The momentum completely shifted when Bonfim landed this devastating, incredibly clean right hand that literally knocked Muhammad's mouth guard out. From that point on, you could see highly visible damage on the veteran's face. Now, Muhammad still showed his trademark toughness and heart. He absolutely refused to give up, but his speed noticeably slowed down. The precision and technical superiority of the 24-year-old were just taking over the entire fight.
But here's perhaps the most fascinating revelation from all of this: how the psychological warfare played out. Remember earlier, Muhammad's big goal was to break the young kid? Well, it actually happened in reverse. Bonfim recalled this specific moment in the clinch where he literally gave a laugh directly into Muhammad's ear. And according to Bonfim, the veteran broke right then and there. Muhammad stopped throwing kicks entirely for several minutes, and his engagement just dropped off a cliff. The youth had completely flipped the mental script.
And the result of this masterful performance? A flawless 50-45 unanimous decision victory for Gabriel Bonfim. Guys, this wasn't a lucky knockout. It wasn't some incredibly tight split decision. This was a clean sweep on the judges' scorecards. A total, unquestionable domination over 25 minutes against a guy who literally used to hold the world title. Ultimately, what this victory represents is the absolute triumph of discipline over raw athleticism. Critics really questioned if a young, explosive submission specialist and knockout artist actually had the cardiovascular gas tank to go 5 rounds with a seasoned pro. Well, Bonfim proudly silenced every single one of those doubts. He executed a highly technical, measured game plan, used superb footwork, and managed distance for a full 25 minutes. He proved that his preparation was absolutely flawless.
So, what's next? Immediately after getting his hand raised, Bonfim didn't even hesitate. He grabbed the mic and boldly called out top contender Jack Della Maddalena. Now keep in mind, Brazil has never had a UFC welterweight champion in its history. Having flawlessly passed this ultimate test of youth versus experience, can this disciplined, incredibly hungry prospect conquer the top 5 and make history? It's a pretty thrilling question to leave you with. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.